The Everything Sequel podcast is brought to you by Tuity Fitness and the Vegas Beer Guys.
The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. 'Cause we learned it from you, Dad. Our souls. Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man relishing beating up on a Halloween movie, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hello to everyone, Tom.
There's a big fella in our bathroom and he's wearing a monster mask. Now that guy is clearly a gifted comic actor.
Yes.
I love that couple, how they react, how they sell that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, I remain aggrieved that we need to reduce a moment like that to what they can mine comedically out of it.
Yeah, right.
When did that become part of our agenda?
Also, I don't think I ever put it together until this round of viewing. But why is the woman that is clearly working for this man as a nurse, right? That's what it's...
Oh, I thought they were a couple.
Well, I think they were that too, but...
Oh, Jesus. Oh, that's a dimension I haven't even explored.
But she's also the person who's showing the reporters the Judith Myers gravestone in the first movie.
Is it really?
And I was like, what the fuck is she doing there?
Well, that's two levels of that character I haven't picked up on.
What the fuck?
So maybe I've maybe I've got this movie wrong. Maybe it deserves a second chance.
I don't think it does.
No, it definitely doesn't. It definitely doesn't. But I mean, everything that I feel about this movie is in spite of those kind of interesting connections between this and the other movie.
Uh-huh.
Like, they do exist.
Yeah, but
like,
you know what's funny?
They works together as a couplet.
Yeah.
In terms of continuity.
In terms of continuity, it does, but it also...
But what you lose from that is, you know, is way more than what you gain.
The other thing for me, though, is, you know, not too long ago, we just did An American Werewolf in Paris.
We certainly did.
And you were very upset at that movie, saying that movie retroactively makes An American Werewolf in London a worse movie. And I was, you know... Intellectually, I can understand why you would say that, but I can separate the two, because to me, it's like such a different movie that they don't even feel like they're part of the same universe.
Yes.
To me, it's only in title only. So I can watch An American Werewolf in London with a clean conscience and be fine. But
okay.
I do think that Halloween Kills actively keeps making Halloween a worse movie. Now
it doesn't. As you know what my perspective is going to be on this. It doesn't need.
Yes,
it doesn't need that kind of help.
But
it doesn't need this movie's help.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting to me is that I didn't realize how right you are, because the one, I think I mentioned this in our last episode. The one thing that I completely disregarded from Halloween that I had basically The Dark Knight Rises about was the Sartain storyline. And so because I shunted all that to the side and just tried to ignore it included the part that this was all his plan. So I was still kind of thinking that Halloween was still between Michael and Laurie.
Right, it really isn't.
And it isn't really even in that movie, but it really upset me in this movie when Lonnie is like, look at this map. He didn't want to go there. He's just trying to get back to his house. I thought, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, why are they taking everything actively out of a Halloween movie that we want? And that they also put in that last movie. Because Laurie Strode thinks it's between them.
Well, there's so many examples of that.
Damn it.
Here. There's so many examples of going back and forth on your own bullshit story that you shouldn't have invented in the first place.
Oh, man. Fuck.
But also, I was interested, like, you know, given that I believe the Sartain storyline was one of the less popular parts of the reception to Halloween 2018. I'm interested that they refer to it here, given that he has no relevance or impact on the storyline.
Yeah, he's got a crushed head.
And yet they still, they still recap his story. Yeah. And you'd think that this would be the perfect opportunity to pretend that never happened.
Oh, man. All right.
Because, as you say, in all other aspects of the story, they are acting like something else was going on.
Right.
Before they decide to replace it with a totally different storyline that comes from absolutely from left field.
Yeah. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are talking about Halloween Kills, a 2021 film. Once again, directed by David Gordon Green. We, of course, mentioned this in the last episode, but more known for comedy, Pineapple Express, The Sitter, Your Highness. We got Our Brand is Crisis. You know, we got television shows like Eastbound and Down, Vice Principals, Righteous Gemstones.
Good shows.
And they're all good, yeah.
Well, the TV shows are good.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I just wanted to clarify.
I did mean all the television shows.
Yeah.
Now, this movie, a dip, Tom, 39% on Rotten Tomatoes, which still is high to me, but at least the consensus, the consensus critically is that this is a much worse movie than Halloween.
There's a couple of moments in this movie that half work, and that's about the best I can say about it.
Are there scenes that half work? I'll reassess that as we go along, because I'm not.
Wow, you're even more damning. I thought that was.
You thought you were being.
I really thought that you'd take issue with that, because you're a much fairer. You're a much fairer human being than I am when it comes to even.
That's how you know
movies.
How bad this movie is.
Yeah.
How much I hate it.
And obviously, I was looking for that. I wouldn't say that unless I was trying to say something nice.
Yeah, of course. Yes. like your Abrams comments.
Well, yeah.
Let me say something nice by first saying something shitty.
My initial reaction to those two scenes I'm talking about would be, oh, that's absolute garbage. But, if I, forensically go back over the scene, it's like, there's a point in this scene where it could have been good.
You want to tell us what the scenes are now, or wait? Well,
no, we'll do it
as we go.
We'll do it as we go along. Yeah. See if we have the same. See if we have the same high points.
All right. Now, this movie had a budget of $20 million, which I think doubles, right? Didn't I say $10 million for the last movie?
I don't listen to what you say when you do your business. So.
Thank you. Yes, $20 million.
That's the point at which I scroll back.
You start going through your notes again.
I scroll back from the quotable to the top of the film. When you say Rotten Tomatoes, that's when I'm like, shit, I got to get back to the title so we can go from the top of the movie.
Glad to know you care.
Hey, this franchise is metatextual. Why can't I?
There you go. All right, a budget of $20 million.
And this division is this part of the franchise.
A division of
podcasting.
labor.
It's about podcasting. So.
All right. A budget of $20 million, an opening weekend 49.4 in the USA, $92 million in the world, 131.6. They got our money.
Yes, they did.
So.
Yeah, this was opening night or pre-opening. Or
yeah,
whatever.
You saw this movie before I did.
I saw it on the Thursday it came out. Which
I waited a whole week to ruin my birthday. That's a bitter end to an otherwise fine day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Tom. First of all, I just want to say that evil dies tonight is said 29 times in this movie.
What? Wow. Hey, you know what? That doesn't surprise me. And you know why? I think this is a case of the script was printed in such a way that there was massive duplication of different drafts. Because what really struck me on this viewing was how many times we recap the Michael Myers origin story verbally in the movie. It's at least 3.
While also watching it
people.
in a cold open.
Well, we're not even go there. Like verbally, people stand they stand up in the film and tell you now in 1960 whatever Michael Myers killed. Like, what's going on here? Like, 1 is too many.
Right.
Like, I seriously, is this a case where the wrong sides were stapled together and it ended up going into the final script? Because that's really what it feels like. And your 29 Evil Dies Tonight does not dissuade me from that point of view.
It only supports the argument.
Wow.
Yeah. Now,
I mean, this is some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard in a film as well.
It's astounding.
And I don't think they're purposefully going for bad horror dialogue.
No, I don't. You know what's funny?
That's what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's what they're going for.
I started trying the other day going down a lane of, was this movie trying to do something that I just didn't understand? Was it trying to be, because we're dealing with comedy guys, were they going for the schlocky bad horror? But nothing else in this movie reads schlocky. You know, there's just not enough within the movie itself for me to believe that that's what they were going for. Everything you see on screen is purposeful and a bad choice.
I think you're right. I would only go, with regards to comedy, I'd only go as far as saying that this movie does exist in a sitcom-like reality.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah. I mean, so much so, because, like, you know, well, maybe I'll save it, because it's not deeper in the movie, but it's...
But that doesn't
we're not even at the credits yet, but let's...
That's got nothing to do with irony and parody.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That is not what they...
Because my note was, it's bad screenwriting. It's stupid.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a byproduct of bad screenwriting or they...
Yeah, I think you're right. It feels more like a byproduct.
Okay, yeah. Well, maybe, but I also think, like, this is...
At least the one thing I'm thinking about.
There's several. I mean, I've got it sort of... It infects every stage of this film, almost, right? From the titles onwards.
Mm-hmm.
But so... I don't know. We'll see as we go on how much this is just their way of writing, given their background, and how much it is like when you do things badly, this is the kind of style you end up with. Mm-hmm. And I don't really want to go that far because I don't think sitcom writing is in and of itself a bad medium.
Yeah. Yeah, so, right.
This isn't even good sitcom writing. That's what I'm saying. Like, if this is sitcom writing, it's bad sitcom writing. This is 2.5 Men level. Mm-hmm. This is not Seinfeld.
You're drawing lines in the...
I don't know why I picked those two.
Drawing lines in the sand.
But I'm actually happy. But I'm happy with those two choices.
You're fine. You're fine.
I doubled down on that.
Absolutely. All right. Now, when this movie opens, we get the boyfriend walking down the street, right? And we're gonna make our first huge leap of logic after getting stabbed in the neck.
Well, go back. I've got a question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
What is going on with the audio at the beginning of this film? These audio clips, is this from the last film? This kind of half screaming, the sound of... Is it supposed to be like an audio clip recap of the previous film?
Did I just blank on this? I'm literally...
Yeah, well, unless something was going seriously wrong with my streaming version, which... but HBO Max is usually pretty reliable. Well, you get the ominous music over the logos, exactly the way Halloween 2018 opens. Uh-huh. It helps eat up the time sitting through all the bloated idents from various production companies that we have to go through. Hey, and you know, I spoke to this before. This is a bit of a tangent, but whatever. Anything not to talk about the actual film. like because you picked me up on this in Halloween 2018. You're like, this is every film. Like every film has this number of production company idents. And I was like, no, this is something from 2009 that we've got out of. And you know what it is? It's because I see mainly kids films now, which are made by big studios, and not a whole lot of independent stuff. So, you know, and also it just increases the dread, I think, knowing what I'm going into.
Right.
The fact that I have to wait for it as well. It just increases that anticipation. But then there's kind of like there's the sound of like gunfire and screaming, and I'm like, what is that? Like, why is that in there?
Is this right before we see him walking down the street?
Yeah, it's right before we hard cut, because apparently there's no other editing capability available to Cameron in drag.
Right.
Calling out for a dead person. Yeah. Okay, so you can't help me with that.
I
That's
cannot,
fine.
yeah.
I'm happy it remaining an enigma, and I just assume it's a terrible choice that didn't translate into anything intelligible.
What can I say other than sorry, I can't help you, but...
So, well, I mean, here's the first big mistake. I say big mistake. The first doubling down on a previous mistake. And basically every time I say mistake, that's what I'm referring to. We're picking up the same night.
Right.
So this is the first sign that the movie will reproduce Halloween 2 in its entirety.
Right.
Having already remade that movie in the previous
film. And also stating in between the two films that the one thing they're not going to do is repeat the mistakes of Halloween 2.
Yes, they made that very clear, and I mean, this is the thing, like, there's nothing in the Halloween handbook that says you have to pick you have to pick up from the same night. Like, this is their choice. Let's never forget that. They decided to do this again. We've talked before about the pros and cons of doing that.
Right, and we also know that John Carpenter was kind of given no choice between Halloween and Halloween 2. The producers said, this is what we want to happen. You must do this. And we it's a famous story that he's just sort of started drinking every night, hating what he was writing, and came up with Halloween 2. But that we both acknowledge is a way better movie than he says it is.
Yeah, sure. And we also acknowledge that aspects of that aftermath storytelling worked and aspects didn't. Yeah. And yet, this movie is in the uncomfortable position of doing the same concept again.
Because, and you've mentioned this before, I mean, not only does this timeline choose to omit everything after the first movie, but they then choose to do what the next sequel did, while also simultaneously showing footage from that movie.
I mean, that's the kicker, isn't
it? That's the cherry on top, is it not?
I don't think you come back
how
do
you justify that?
How can you show clips from a movie that you deleted from history?
Right.
Yeah. We've obviously we see Oscar's body hanging from the gate.
Yeah, my note was Oscar is still very much not found.
Yes. And then we find Hawkins' body.
Which should be dead.
Which also should not be there because the geography of Haddonfield doesn't make sense.
No, yeah, right.
I guess I'm not gonna pin that on this movie. It's never made sense to me. So his body really shouldn't be where it is, but we don't. Haddonfield is an M.C. Escher painting, so far.
Yeah, right.
And then this is, I mean...
Also, I take issue with they're loading Hawkins into an ambulance, and he says, I'm the one who's gonna get him. Mm-hmm. That's a promise not kept.
Yeah. Or that he will do anything but
exactly.
sit in a hospital bed.
And also
with the lead of the movie, who also doesn't.
That's what I was
anything.
just gonna say. So when when you have Will Patton and Jamie Lee Curtis, two very good actors,
very good actors,
and the best actors you have in your movie.
Yes, and the star of the original Halloween.
Yeah, right. And then choose to just put them on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Again,
the idea. Yeah.
This was what you said you weren't going to do.
Explicitly.
Explicitly said you weren't going to do, and it's what you did. It's mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling, especially that at the point at which they're both next to each other in
Yeah, no.
in the same room, in different hospital beds, both of them severely injured. Like, at no point in filming this did anyone, like, turn to each other and say, I'm not sure this is the best use of these two actors.
Right. Yes.
But we'll get there. We'll
And it's almost too much of a retcon for me to take that he's alive. Because he had, his jugular severed and then was run over.
I know it seems strange to say in a movie that continually resurrects its main character.
Yeah, right.
But I feel like there are some things that are acceptable to do with Michael Myers that aren't acceptable to do with the other characters.
Yes.
You can't apply the same logic. He was definitely dead. There was no two ways about it. He wasn't even Ronnie dead. I mean, he was like...
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's my cutoff point. I'm like, yeah, I want to see... I don't want Ronnie to die. This guy, I was happy with him dying. It was simple. It was clean. And now it's messy. Very
so
messy. And also, this is, like, the fact that we're focusing on a guy who'd been killed off, on a character, Cameron, that we'd forgotten completely about.
Right. Yes.
This also tells me that this is the leftovers. This is not a we're gonna make a stew out of the leftovers, and that's gonna be the movie. And that is very much what the movie is.
Yeah.
It's a thin Carl Weathers in Arrested Development stew.
You know when you make a good stew and then like 3 weeks later there's still a bit left and you think to yourself, is this still good? And you're smelling it.
Yeah, it's Carl Weathers in...
You're not sure that it's bad, but you absolutely know in your heart that if you were to heat it up and bite it, you would go, "Oh God."
It's Carl Weathers in Carl Weathers in Arrested Development taking the bones from the buffet, taking them home with him, making a stew.
Yes.
And I mean, you know, I have, from what conversations we've had off mic.
Yeah.
It seems to be that this is this point in the movie where we cut again, a hard cut because there's no other cut available. With this filmmaker, when we cut to Halloween 1978, I feel like this is when you were out, right? This is where all possibility of you ever being on board with this movie was done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
My point is in this scene, but not quite yet. I do remember thinking...
I remember saying out loud...
Okay, I'm uncomfortable with this idea, but let's see what they do.
I remember saying out loud in the movie theater, "Oh no."
Oh no, yes. And, you know, it's another... The headline of this for me is, you know, the same problem I have with most of the direct sequels out there, which is that you're creating a new original, and your sequel is no longer to the original movie, but the movie you've created in between the two movies. You know, that's what I dislike about Terminator Dark Fate, to some extent the other Halloween, to Halloween 2018, and here it's so it's so egregious.
It's egregious, right, that's the word.
Never making a direct sequel ever again on the basis of this one story choice. And, you know, I sort of think...
To me, it's like...
They're too... I think also it says to me they're too cowardly to remake Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is their backdoor way of doing it.
Right.
But they really want to, but they're too cowardly. They don't want to upset the fans in the way that Rob Zombie did.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying that's a bad instinct, but they also really want to do it, and they're gonna do it but they're also going to do it in a way that they won't own up to doing it.
Well, and also, on top of that, they decide to do it, but then within doing it, the mistakes within it are compounded one on top of another in a way in which you are just dealing with the biggest pile of shit.
Yeah.
That I've that just saddles the rest of the movie with. In a way just like it sort of just ripped my Halloween soul out of my body. You know, it made me so sad.
Not to mention the fact that the you know, if you're looking at this in terms of story and character, the purpose of this flashback, I don't think we can call it that, but let's loosely call it that. It's not a flashback.
It's for Hawkins.
This never happened. Yeah, it's to retrofit a character from their direct sequel back into the... Well, you know, and it's not even the original Halloween.
No.
This is after Halloween 2 in the original timeline has begun. Which effectively means this is a remake of Halloween 2 after you've just done that.
But you're also trying to set up a storyline for someone you're going to be putting on the sidelines in the hospital for the rest of the movie who won't matter. So we don't need to see it.
Why does he need this extra? Why does Hawkins need this extra backstory?
He doesn't.
Like, why does he? He does.
We got everything we needed in the last movie when he said, "I was there that night." That's all. That's literally all you need.
I have the same note. It's like I used to know the guy. The fact that he knew Michael Myers like before he was a killer.
Well, his partner did.
His partner did. That's right.
But I got things to say about that partner.
But we didn't know about the partner, right? We didn't know about the partner.
No,
that's all new.
That's all new.
Also, here's something you don't need in a flashback. A flashback. Characters start like telling stories about things that have happened in the past. I'm like, guys, you're already in a flashback. You don't need to tell us about what happened before the flashback.
I've written a flashback within a flashback as a joke.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's yeah, but it's definitely not a joke. It's like, I don't know. I think again, it's disingenuous. It wants you to feel like Hawkins has always been there in the story.
Yeah, right.
He was introduced in the last film, tenuously even then, and the more you try and integrate him into the original canvas of the movie, the less authentic he seems. And they're just, they're just gilding the lily.
I mean, we have not seen Halloween Ends yet, but you made a logical point that all of these movies always seem to feel like they have to continue on from, keep the same night from one movie to the next movie.
Yeah.
And that they don't have to do that. And I actually saw a clip of Jamie Lee Curtis because I told you, I think, on Mike in our last episode that I was mildly happy that there was a time jump.
Right.
And she mentioned the time jump. She said, Laurie is still dealing with all that grief. Now, all that grief is still a part of her in her background, but she's gotten some help with her mental health. And so she's in a place where she could live her life. And I remember thinking, what a great place for Halloween Kills to have gone to. Like,
also where Halloween, H2O is.
Yeah, exactly.
So, again, it doesn't feel like we're moving on as much as we should be. So, and we're back at the Myers house, and it's interesting that Taking Shape, which had no foreknowledge of Halloween Kills,
right,
even put in the chapter about Halloween 2018, they cut a scene set in the Myers house. I wonder if Halloween Kills will pick it up. Boy, did it!
They
because the majority of the film is set at the Myers house, and I remember, even as recently in our version of events as Halloween Resurrection, I remember thinking, what a refreshing change to go to the Myers house.
Right.
And for some reason this movie just sours me on that idea from moment one.
Right.
And I think, I don't know, a big part of it is like the I mean, in theory, I should like the moment where you see the dead dog, but you don't refer to it. It's just there, and you go, "Oh, it's a dead dog." Mm-hmm. It's like that should work, right? Because normally I would say the opposite. It's like we have to have a close up of the dead dog. Mm-hmm. We have to talk about how the dead dog, and they don't do that.
Right.
But again, we're walking around the Myers house as if it's some kind of franchise museum. And at this point, it's just a house. And everything that happened that will contribute to the mythos of this house happened that night.
Yeah.
So, when you get to Halloween Resurrection and Busta Rhymes has refitted the Myers house as a kind of spooky entertainment theme park, you're like, that's earned because it's 30 years later or 20 whatever years later.
Sure.
It's not earned on the night of Michael Myers killing.
I mean, the only pushback... I can't believe I'm going to defend this movie, but of course...
No, go for it.
But
no
of
one
course,
else will.
young Michael Myers killed his sister years before that.
Right.
So it is, in the timeline, it is still that... It's the abandoned house that Lonnie was trying to get in, that Loomis did say, "Hey, Lonnie, get your ass out of here." So it is still kind of that spooky house in world.
And the window's smashed because of those kids or because the mob's been there?
I think kids.
Okay. Because we saw in the original Halloween 2, we saw a mob throwing stones at the window.
But even though we see things from Halloween 2, this movie says Halloween 2 didn't happen.
Yeah, but it's happy to say that certain events that happened in Halloween 2
you're right.
happen.
You're right.
So it wants to have its cake and eat it for past sequels.
Now, this is where, I mean, I don't know why I care so much, but there are things happening in this house. Listen, there's not a person talking on this podcast or listening to this podcast that probably hasn't seen a million police procedurals, right?
Okay.
Cops go into the building. They have to clear the building.
Mm-hmm.
These two cops go in, clear the first floor, and then hear something upstairs.
Yeah.
So they go upstairs. They, of course, choose to separate because that's a very, horror thing to do. But
because it's all reverse engineered, and we need Hawkins to accidentally kill his partner.
We need him to kill his partner, exactly. But what cop would go into a room, try to clear it, then put his weapon down, look out the window, and pensively say, "Haddonfield, the town where nothing happens." Oh my God, a scary guy. Like, the logic of it is...
Yeah.
It's, again, so egregious that...
Yeah.
That's the moment I quit this movie.
Oh, okay, interesting. Well, then the moments we quit the movie are pretty close together then. Because for me it's the Loomis alike.
Yes, of course. I knew that was your quit moment.
And aside from I've talked before about conceptually I find it inherently disrespectful to resurrect dead actors via digital or a combination of digital and practical masking. I find it ghoulish in a way that is
with an ADR voiceover of a whole second person.
Doesn't even sound like Donald Pleasence, but and added to that, of course, resurrecting the disrespect for Donald Pleasence that they managed to keep vaguely under wraps for a few films. The voice suffices. If you're going to do anything, the voice is that's as far as you need to go. Right. But what I really disliked about this moment and why it was it was a deal breaker for me was they're leaning into the uncanny valley of it all. Almost like the way it's filmed is sort of like it's not there's Donald Pleasence. It's like, look at how weird and creepy this mask is when we digitally alter it. It's like they're not even like so.
Well,
what does it serve to see him in that
exactly
moment? as opposed to just hear his voice.
That's the problem. That's the thing I take the most issue with, is because to me it feels like the filmmakers are doing a Busta Rhymes. They are patting themselves on the back, saying, "Look what we've done for you, fans."
Yeah, we've exhumed a grave for you. And shown it to you with all the tastelessness that act implies.
Now, let me ask you one question, though, because I've been curious about this. Because how this scene ends is with Hawkins stopping Loomis from shooting Michael in the head.
Uh-huh.
And that plays into your Loomis is a crazy vigilante storyline.
Well, yeah, but I need time for him to get there from when we see him at the end of Halloween.
Gotcha. Okay, so that was my question.
I'm assuming
for you.
that's not. I'm assuming that kind of character turn doesn't happen in a matter of minutes.
I thought the same thing. I thought that seems pretty quick even for Loomis, does it not?
Also,
like
he's so again, it's like I can't believe I'm saying, I can't believe I'm like someone who doesn't make films saying this about established filmmakers, but you don't need to show something that the audience already know
happened, right?
We know he got caught. We were told he got caught. Happened off screen. That's fine.
That's where we met him at the beginning of your last fucking movie. God damn it.
Oh, so, that's all we need. And then, to me, this is like the hard cut to the I guess we'll get at least to the title.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because
I'm sure there's a break.
We got a break coming up, but let's get through the titles.
Okay, let's get through the titles. But first of all, the hard cut to the title, which is apparently the stylistic signature of this series. This trilogy.
Well, now, yeah,
it doesn't work. Didn't work in the last movie. I also again, this is where the sitcom style starts to permeate, because this is like something you do in an episode of Family Guy.
You're right.
Like you cut away, and then there's a sketch. You refer to something, and then you cut away to a sketch. That is what this. I mean, this is only the first example I have of this, and but we're relighting the pumpkin, and now it is many pumpkins.
There are as many pumpkins as there have been Halloween films. That was what they did.
Is that intentional? Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, that came across to me because it symbolizes the multiplicity and repetitiousness of the franchise. Again, something that if I was making this movie, I'd want to keep to myself.
There are things that I was willing to give a pass to 2018 that you were adamantly against.
Yeah.
In terms of cutting a timeline out, and and then referencing movies that you cut out. But to me, I'm on your. I think maybe I'm more on your older side than you are. You know, why are we counting pumpkins from the movies that you deleted?
Oh, that's a very good point.
So
that's a very good point, and you're right. I should have come up with that. But I was thinking more along the lines of the no new insights line.
Yeah,
from the last movie. It's like, oh, because let's not forget this title sequence ends with a flaming pumpkin.
Yeah.
It's like unlike other previous sequels in the series, this sequel likes to make reference and play up its own retcons. Because you go, oh, that's right, we've got a retcon Michael Myers burning to death.
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay. That reminds me as a viewer that's the work that this movie has to do. I don't want to be reminded of that. I want it to be like Halloween 4, where we're like, here they are, they're a bit burned.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's move on.
They got some melty face, and Loomis has got a limp. What more do you need?
Right.
Done and done.
Something I was really fascinated by, like even the titles make bad choices. Nearly all the characters are named in these opening credits.
Mm.
And like some of these are characters that we know, and some of them are not.
Yeah, right.
So the idea is it's like these are classic performances of classic characters, many of whom we've just met and don't even know the significance of yet. But nonetheless, and then it's like, and then you've blown your final credit where you have the named character underneath the actor's name, because all of them are like that. I don't know how you fuck up a title sequence this badly, but they really did.
That's amazing.
The ineptitude is, I mean, it's in every
it permeates.
aspect of this movie.
Permeates. Yeah. It oozes from every pore of this film.
It oozes from every orifice of this movie.
All right, let's take a break.
Yeah.
I need one.
Oh, God, yes, I do.
All right, we're going to take a break, and then we'll be back, everyone.
Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight.
Just keep repeating it. Maybe you'll get home to Kansas.
Does the coronavirus have you feeling oogie? Have you been sitting on your couch for weeks? Nay, have you been sitting on there for months? Well, it's time for you to get back in shape. Check out 2AT Fitness. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. 2AT Fitness was started by Tina Bernard. She is ready and raring to go to help you get back into the shape you want to get into. They've got all kinds of classes. They've got outdoor in-person classes. They've got online classes if that's what you prefer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back in shape. You're going to find a variety of exercises. You're going to have strength training, cardio, weightlifting, even fun 5-minute burnouts that will push you to your limits. So get off the couch, get into shape. Go ahead and check out 2AT Fitness. Tina Bernard has got you for all your needs. I know her personally. She's fantastic. You're not going to meet a better person to help you become the new you. Check it out. Tom and I are back. Ready to let evil die tonight. Halloween Kills were
Evil dies tonight? I hadn't heard.
We're talking Halloween Kills.
News to me.
The 2021 film that is the bane of our existence. At least currently.
It really is. Even more so than Bane. From another movie we don't like. 2 movies we don't like. Although one of us likes far more than the other.
And I don't know why you would do that to this movie. Why would you?
That sounds like I have to say that sounds like Kermit with a Bane mask on.
Exactly. I've told you many times to watch that animated Harley Quinn.
Yeah, I will.
It's
I will.
Very funny. I don't know why you would do that.
I do like parody Banes. Also,
Great.
Shout out to Doug Benson.
All right, I have a question for you. Because we're going to kind of,
I
think we're juxtaposing within the film, right? We're at the bar and seeing Michael get out of the house.
We're in the bar for a while, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
wait, let me ask my question first.
Okay, go. Yeah, ask your question. I don't have an
My
answer,
question is, how the fuck and why does Nurse Marion know Lonnie, Tommy, and Lindsay? Why are these people best friends?
Well, I mean,
just the shared trauma of 40 years
ago.
That's
the sad. Yeah, I think you already know the answer, and it's not a good. It's not a helpful answer
because they didn't meet that night.
No, they were bonded together because of the trauma. Because trauma is the only thing that is in their characterization in these films.
All right. Is bringing Lonnie back into this a bit of a reach?
Yes.
Okay. I thought so too.
This is going to be a quick segment. Moving on. Well, again,
and we didn't give much play, but there is,
Again, it feels like the dregs, doesn't it? It's like, who's left?
Yeah,
this guy.
right.
We
exactly.
mentioned this guy. Let's make a character out of him because we killed off a lot of the characters that should have been in this film. Right. We can only legitimately resurrect one, and even that's a push.
Legitimately.
We gotta go to. I'm really surprised. I mean, listen, we haven't seen Halloween Ends yet, but I'm really surprised we don't see Ben Tramer in this movie. He is mentioned,
yeah, he's
but I'm
mentioned.
really surprised
Yeah.
we don't get at least one scene with Ben Tramer. Also, I was just going to say this now. There's no particularly good time in the movie to say it, but by keeping it the same night, we're also making a period piece. So you fucked yourself again.
That's amazing.
You know?
I mean, not much of a period piece, but
enough that it causes problems.
3 years.
Yeah. Well, I actually think this is a huge problem for the film. Because it's pre and post January 6th, but we'll get there.
Yeah, very much.
We'll get there in a little while. And we're picking up with the extras from the last film.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So again, the price of continuity is that we start with characters that we've not been introduced to, nor are we invested in.
Yeah. Now, and here's my other question for you. Did they cast those two actors going to their party in the last film, knowing how much they'd be in this film?
I don't even know if it is the same actors. Do we know definitively it is the
No,
same
yeah,
actors?
I think it is.
We never see a close-up of them.
It's them.
Okay.
Close enough, yeah.
Close enough.
No, I meant it was a close enough shot for me.
I know what you mean, but I also know that at some point David Gordon Green said exactly the same thing. He's like, yeah, close enough, yeah.
But I just was wondering if it was, because you hire an actor for a specific thing.
Yeah.
And giving them 60 seconds worth of dialogue.
Getting into a car,
as opposed to making them a central part of, what are we calling them? The task force? Fuck. Whoever these terrible monsters are. But.
Well, I mean, that said, I vastly prefer these two characters to our legacy characters.
Yes, absolutely, actually, you're right.
Who are introduced to us as the worst white people at a bar
that ever lived. Yes.
And the worst part of them being the worst white people at a bar is that over the course of the next few scenes, we're told that we're just supposed to be okay with it.
Yeah,
because they've gone through some shit.
Yeah.
So African Americans with your historical trauma, suck it up. These three white people have been through one night of bad stuff.
And you know what we do? We come to this bar on Halloween night and infect the talent show every single year.
You know what? One of the reasons I think this movie is considerably worse than Halloween 2018, even though I think it has a lot of the same screenwriting problems, is that the reverse engineering that is characteristic of both movies legitimately doesn't work in this film. Like, at the very least you can say about Halloween 2018 is you reverse engineered to a point of logic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, to a logical starting point where cause and effects make sense. So they've reverse engineered this scene so that Tommy Doyle can get up and do a monologue about what happened that night. Why the fuck would you do that with him bombing a talent show?
Exactly.
With his sadness.
Yes, exactly.
What is wrong with him just standing up at the bar saying, "Can I get everyone's attention, please? I don't want to ruin your night, but I gotta say," like, why a talent show?
Well, it also makes...
It's redundant.
The movie also makes it seem like Lonnie's in charge of the talent show.
He does. Yeah.
But for no logical reason.
I mean,
not that I guess it not
yeah.
Not that logic has to play a part in it, but
you're right. I just don't. I
just don't believe Lonnie would be put in charge of the fucking talent show.
No, not at all. And it's kind of, I mean, again, it's sort of, it's sad
and also
funny
because
the reaction to Tommy getting up, like the apathy of the audience, is exactly what I'm feeling. At this point.
Yes, yeah. And probably for no other reason than he's telling us stuff that audience and the audience in the theater already knows.
And if you want to pile on that, you can say that his obsessional monologue also shows us that we haven't moved beyond the Tommy Doyle we saw in Curse of Michael Myers.
Mm-hmm.
This is a different flavor of the same idea.
Right.
Like it's like this is what happened to him that night controls this guy's life. There's literally no more sophisticated than that.
Right.
And we've already explored it. I could say that about literally anything that happens in this film. It's no more complicated than it seems, and it's already been done.
And it's been done before.
Nancy's back. Nancy Stevens, I mean, the actress,
Mm-hmm.
as Marion.
Yes.
Which means that she's been in 3 different
timelines
in the
right?
series, which is cool. However, you also, I mean, you'll see this reaffirmed later, but I'm already going, well, she's even less developed than she was in H2O.
Yeah, I know.
And she's been on screen for 2 minutes. Like, I already know this is going to be worse and more cardboard than she was in that movie. And it's 2018. It should be building on that. It shouldn't be a poor man's version of that.
Right, because
and that's exactly what it is.
We discussed this in the last episode, but everything that people loved about the 2018 film regarding Me Too and the sort of this idea of 3 generations of women kind of attacking their male antagonist.
Yeah.
We said was accidental.
Mm-hmm.
But anything in this movie wouldn't be. And so isn't it interesting that they had this opportunity and then failed?
Well, not only failed, but made the opposite point.
Right, yes.
Like actively made a repressive counterpoint
Yes.
to that point that they made, albeit accidentally.
Yeah.
This is where, I mean, at least in my notes, this is where we have the clips from Halloween 2.
Yeah, that's it. Same with me.
Which seems unnecessary given that it no longer exists, and we have a legacy actor from that movie in the scene.
Yeah, right.
Who could say this verbally if you wanted to.
Right.
So, and then the movie starts showing clips from its own flashback, which was about 5 minutes ago in the movie. So desperate to legitimize its own version of the story.
Oh, I also have a note here, though.
While simultaneously showing us that there is another better version of this story.
I also wrote a note going back to, Tommy. Because one of his last lines he has is, "We will never succumb to fear."
Oh, Jesus.
And that had such an ugly January 6th tinge to it that I remember thinking, I think I know what we're in store for the rest of this movie. And I'm going to start hating it now.
I didn't think it was possible that you could make such a pro-MAGA movie.
Yeah.
In 2021 that wasn't didn't set out to do that.
Yeah, right.
There wasn't
where people weren't all wearing red hats.
But yeah, no, I have the same note here that I know it's gonna get worse, but I feel like the MAGA vigilante rhetoric is already heating up in this one scene.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
Scene. He's stirring up the idea of extra legal force as being the solution to all our problems. And it made me wonder, sort of, because this movie the release of this movie was delayed by about a year.
Yeah.
Due to COVID. And I wonder whether, the tone deafness to January 6th, part of that is they made this in a world where such a thing was unthinkable. And it would never apply to the real world.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to give the movie that out because I have a lot to say which contradicts.
I guess you're right, because I was thinking because it came out in 2021, I was like, "There's no excuse for this."
They should have absolutely pulled the movie once January 6th had happened completely, or re-shot it or something. Nonetheless, I don't think I don't think they could contemplate that this would be our world when they were necessarily shooting it. But
all right,
that's as generous as I'm willing to be, and I have a lot
I wasn't willing to be that generous, and you're changing my mind. You're right.
But I have a lot harsher things to say about how they actually represent vigilantism, which I think
me too.
Is exactly along the same lines as exactly how Trump would argue it.
It literally makes my skin crawl as I watch this movie.
So it's at this point that first of all, I don't know. I don't know if I should save it, but I guess we're introduced to Anthony Michael Hall as Tommy Doyle here, so I'll just say...
what a waste of a great actor, though.
I have the same note, because he's one of those actors that never got the... As an adult, never got the
quality roles that he should.
Yeah, that he should, and that he had the potential to become. And you can see throughout this movie, he's so committed to this hideous and misguided version of this character.
Yeah, exactly.
He does all the heavy lifting in terms of acting in this movie, and it's all for naught.
And exactly. Like, he is trying so hard, and it kind of breaks my heart.
It does, me too.
To see him give so much to a really shitty idea and a shitty person. Like,
but it's so interesting to me that, like, given that the characterization, at least on paper, is pretty much exactly the Tommy Doyle that we saw in Curse of Michael Myers. The disparate manifestations of that character.
Yeah.
On one side you've got Monk, and on the other side you've got Vic. The other side you've got Vic Mackey from The Shield. Like, how the fuck does that happen from the same? From the same nucleus of the character, right?
That's amazing.
But that's,
Monk.
It's sort of like, and yet at the same time, like it's like, yes, in a way you couldn't be more different in terms of both the actors, how they're playing the role, the kind of character that they come up with in playing the role, and yet at the same time, both of them if you wrote out the character on paper, would be exactly the same. It's like exactly the same.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fascinating to me, but I'm glad we have the same thoughts. But we should talk about, because we're picking up where we left Laurie at this point. This is where we cut away to.
Well, I have Michael. Yeah, okay, then fine. But you're right.
They've written themselves into a story corner again. I mean, because Laurie is very injured,
right,
and her house is on fire with Michael Myers in it. So we've got all that to deal with. She says, "Let it burn." And it occurred to me that's like, oh, yes. So
the movie can't even decide, though, Tom, because she's saying let it burn, which would make you think, oh, she's worried that Michael could survive.
Yeah.
But 10 minutes later, she's saying, we got him.
Interesting. I hadn't noticed that.
So even the movie...
Maybe there's too many inconsistencies around for me to pick out any single one, but you're right. That's a pretty big one. But it also... But, it's interesting because... Yeah, obviously, we're very much remaking Halloween 2 here, but Halloween 2018 is also a remake of Halloween 2. So we're effectively, story-wise, where we were at the end of Halloween 2. Michael Myers is burned.
That's how you know you're making bad movies, when you remake a second sequel twice.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, I know, and then, so this is the story part we're at, and... you can go one of two ways, it seems to me. You could go in the direction this movie went, or you turn it into an anthology series.
Yeah,
right? And I think, once again, the original timeline made the better call.
Yeah.
Where do we go after the fire? And that's interesting. But given the fire itself...
Well, now, I was going to say, so I'll give this movie a break on the fire itself.
What part of it?
Well, just the idea, the fireman, he falls through the floor. Yes, when we left Michael, the entire room was burning, but apparently this movie is telling you there's a little side room with a metal door, and he's kind of I'm sure he's boiling in there. But...
No, this movie didn't tell us that. The previous movie told us that by constantly opening and closing that fucking
You're
door.
right. You're right. You're right.
I feel like a fool for not knowing that this was how they were going to bring him back.
Yeah.
But didn't it strike you that in setting fire to her own home, Laurie Strode is responsible for more deaths than Michael Myers is in terms of the firefighters? Because they're all getting their ass handed to them because of what she did, not him.
Right. You're right. I had not
Once again, our heroes are fucking monsters.
Yeah, they're terrible. and that's the, you know, again, this movie retroactively makes the last movie worse for me because in the last movie, I was willing to go along with all of Laurie's nonsense. You know, it's funny because this movie cuts out so much of all the other movies, but I was basically relaying the 40 years of Halloween movies into the characters' you know, gun nut sensibility.
Yes.
Because that movie wants you to think that she is a woman dealing with trauma, and she is. Like, they at least do that. But it's not like her, you know, it's not like her. This movie also all of a sudden states that her vigilantism is no better than Tommy's vigilantism in this movie. So she's just as big a piece of shit as he is.
Definitely.
And you're right. So when she sets fire to her own house, she's the one that got all these firefighters killed.
Completely.
And by the way, if I was those firefighters and I saw Michael Myers walk, I'd be out.
Yeah.
You can have a new dealer. Let's get in our truck and let this one burn to the ground.
It's really interesting. The previous movie and most of this movie make like a huge deal out of giving Michael Myers a real world escape clause, right? Stuff that that he could still be part of the real world.
Yeah.
But the ending of the film
denies that
all
completely.
Of that away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this even though in and of itself might not be that bad an idea, is all for naught. I don't know how I'm going to say that as many times as Evil Dies Tonight. I think it's going to be all for naught. Mask Watch.
Yeah.
The mask is a bit burnt.
It's a bit burnt, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, well, this is
singed.
Interesting. Right, but it tells us, well, at least for this movie, the mask will not be reset. It now bears the mark of the events of each of the film. Except I've seen a preview for Halloween Ends and he's got a completely different mask, so that blows that theory. And that was going to be a half compliment to this film, so that's gone. But if they really wanted to reflect, you know, like if you really wanted to see the events of Halloween Kills on the mask, it should spawn a MAGA hat. I think that's the only way in which which you could do that. Laurie's back in a hospital bed. You know, they
well,
can
and
do
here's
all
my note. Like, to you, you know, we've said this several times, and this has been your big thing when you said this movie chose to make it an aftermath movie.
Yeah.
And one of the problems you have is that gives Karen and Allison about 3 seconds to mourn the death of her husband and her father.
And yet, even with that caveat, I think it's overdone. I think they should have.
But again, with really bad dialogue, you know, lines like
terrible.
"Dad's gone, he'll always be with us." All right, let's move on. They may as well have said, "Okay, let's move on" right after that line, because that's what the characters do in the movie.
This is one of my half-working moments. When Karen looks at the wedding ring and then she closes the blinds, and if they'd have ended it there, I think that would have been a nuanced way to both recap what happened and also to address her mourning her husband. But then we have to see her cry, so fuck that. Then it's just melodrama. I love that they try and make the hospital seem busy to hide the fact that it's the same story problem as before. It's just because the hospital is busier doesn't mean it's any better than Halloween 2.
Right.
And I'm gonna go as far as saying I think they've made it even less likely for Laurie to emerge as a heroine than Halloween 2 did.
Sure.
Because she goes into surgery,
right,
and she's comatose for a big part of this movie as well. So, you know, like when this happens in it's 1981, right? The Halloween 2.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens in 1981, there's a number of factors which is like they just haven't thought it through. It wouldn't occur to them that they would need to make the female lead an active heroine in the same way that it should in 2021.
Yeah, right.
So in all respects, there's no excuse for making this
really
mistake
is not.
Again. And doubling down on it, you make the character even less likely to ever do anything active in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on in the film, they accelerate her recovery so that she can do anything.
Include collapsing back on the floor and going back up to her hospital bed.
Well, right, but even the fact that she can do that is a stretch.
Yeah.
Given
Absolutely.
what she's been through.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah, but no one told you to do this. Like, no one...
Right.
This is your choice.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, you can't, like, accelerate the recovery process. Just don't have a recovery process.
Mm-hmm.
Just have it that she wasn't as injured as we thought she was. Or don't do it the same night. I mean, the options are limitless, guys.
Exactly.
The storytelling options are literally limitless until you put limits on them.
Yes.
Here's another cracking piece of terrible dialogue. He'll always be with us, even if we can't see him.
Oh, fucking fuck.
I mean, is that not the worst possible expression of that sentiment you can think of?
Jesus. Unbelievable.
Next, I have the swearing, drinking old couple with drones.
Me too.
And
also, there's something that, there's something that I noticed. I think the character's name is Sandra, right?
Sure.
Okay. Fine.
I know. I only know the guy as Larry David's poker buddy in the TV movie Clear History. So
there you go, Lenny Clark.
Yeah, of course. You could guess that guy was called Lenny Clark.
Yeah, I know, right?
Couldn't you?
Yeah.
There's only like 3 other names his name could be.
Benny Clark.
Yeah. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
So, there was something that I pieced together watching these movies back to back, and it has to do with the female empowerment thing too, because they do a thing with the reporter in the first movie, and then with Sandra in this movie, where they both are holding weapons that they're just too frightened to use against Michael Myers, and that really pissed me off.
It pisses me off too. Well, it all kind of pisses me off. Like, okay, to be fair, okay, to give the movie its due, I understand what it's trying to do. They are anti-stereotypical old people. They're an interracial couple. Apparently she's his maid. I don't know, but that doesn't help, does it?
Well, I thought she was like a care worker, like.
She has a drone. They're swearing, they're drinking, they're doing things that you don't expect old people to do.
Right.
You know, like the old lady in The Wedding Singer.
Sure.
But which is a very sick. First of all, very sick comedy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. We're in that territory, but the pattern. And I think it's all the way through both these films, but particularly in this film, they think minor characters get more interesting the more stuff we give them to do.
Right.
But it just makes them seem that much more gimmicky and cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's tied up with something progressive, which makes it worse. So it's like, look, that child ignores the child in the first movie. He ignores gender norms.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, doesn't mean it's a well-written scene just because you include that progressive detail.
Yeah.
And likewise here, the fact that they're an interracial couple and they don't, they're not stereotypical old people, doesn't mean this scene works in any respect.
No, yeah. Okay. No.
And it just makes it seem like a complete waste. And it also underlies the fact that you're essentially doing the same scene from Halloween 2 with the 2 old people. But I believe those Like, there's no boring people in this town.
Right. Yes, right.
In Halloween 2, there are people who are just boring. They're not interesting characters.
Sure.
And that's what fucking places like Haddonfield are like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And it doesn't make the film any less interesting.
Right.
Because they are less interesting. And this movie does not understand that. Everyone has to be comically heightened to make them seem interesting, but they're actually less interesting because you know it's a facade. Yeah. It's hiding the fact that we got nothing new, we got nothing else.
And I got breaking news. So,
oh Christ.
Diva Tyler is this actor's name.
Yeah.
In Halloween 2018, maybe this is why I thought she was a caregiver, because her character name is Caretaker.
Oh, she's the caretaker of the graveyard.
So probably caretaker of the graveyard.
Okay.
But she's literally listed as Sandra in the second movie. So I don't know if they cast her as the same character or not.
Jesus Christ.
That's how stupid this movie is.
Yeah.
And
you know what else is stupid? Killing someone with an energy efficient light bulb.
Yes. Especially when I believe that light bulb...
Is that really the only difference between this and Halloween 2? Is that it's an energy efficient light bulb? Is that it? Is that all you got?
I also don't believe those light bulbs could really...
smash like that?
Yeah, like get that deep into a neck without breaking to pieces, you know?
Sure. Well, it's not supposed to. They're not designed not to.
Yeah. What do you think of this putting Lenny Clark up on the kitchen island and just repeatedly stabbing an already dead body in the back? Is that frightening?
It's not.
Or is that just poor taste?
I guess it is. I thought it was another attempt to sort of like show Michael as human, like he has to test out the knives before he finds the right, like that he exists.
Finds
in the
one world. He likes.
Yeah. But then, for that to work, he would have to end the film as a human and not a superhuman. So
right,
it is all for naught.
So it all for naught.
And also, and then we go back to the talent show where there's a ventriloquist singing a 1920s novelty song.
Yeah,
what the fuck is going on? Imagine coming up with this in the writer's room. What's this trying to tell us?
Here's another big thing. I mean, I put that aside because this movie also, this bar is finding out that Michael Myers escaped pretty late.
Yes.
Because in our last film, he escaped that bus, and it's not like the press wasn't on scene on Halloween morning. So I don't believe that Tommy and his gang of merry murderers were not going to find out before this moment.
True.
So it's like, this movie is always shoehorning shit in for its characters in a way. I think I mentioned this in maybe the ranking episode. This movie's always cheating.
Yeah, always cheating.
Like always cheating I mean, the weaving that this plot is doing to try to get to where it wants to go. You know what it feels like? Yeah. It feels like a first draft.
Yeah.
It feels like a first draft that you turn into a friend.
Or multiple first drafts.
Yeah, and they say, "What the fuck are you doing with this and this and this? You have to fix this and this and that. This is all sloppy.
You've already done this 3 times.
Right.
You can cut at least 2 of them out.
Right.
Maybe say Evil dies tonight fewer times. You know what's a big cheat in this scene, speaking of that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it calls back to the previous scene where... and, I should have known, because of all the reverse engineering that goes on in these films, I should have known that I genuinely like, mainly because it's a non-actor and you can breathe for a minute, the bartender...
Giving a little exposition?
Yeah, he's clearly a non-actor, and then everyone's just talking to him, and he's reminiscing, and he's talking about and then you see the bat behind the bar, and of course, I should have known that was going to become a weapon. But at the time, I'm thinking, well, this is just a nice, natural moment to loosen things up a little bit, and I like the fact this guy is an actor, and it's totally natural. But of course, that's the bat that Tommy takes.
Yeah.
So that was
Old
the only
Hickory.
reason that was the only reason it was there.
Yeah.
And then he puts a tip in a kids charity thing,
Right.
and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to think about this. Is that a joke? Or is it sincere, like, I'm saving kids by beating in the head of a man who didn't even do anything?
See, I thought it was more akin to, I'm going to give you $5 for this bat.
What did you? I mean,
this is your tip jar, right?
Yeah.
This is your taking weapons off your wall tip jar.
Right. Speaking of ruining movies that you like, I don't like how they play with the fugitive imagery.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like this. His name is Michael Myers bullshit.
Right.
First of all, there's no a manhunt in the movie, so you shouldn't even be leaning into the fugitive. But you got to be a better movie to pull that kind of referencing. At least for me. At least given how highly I think of that movie.
I love that movie.
I love that movie. So
go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know where I was gonna go.
Well, this is the part where we're gonna meet the inmate, Michael's inmate pal that we saw in the first movie. And again, this is one of those things where I thought, did they cast him in that movie knowing what a big role he was going to have in this movie?
I mean...
Not that it matters, I guess, but... And I also...
Well, it doesn't matter as much as it should.
Mm-hmm.
Because the fact that... So, okay, let's just talk about it. It's the elephant in the room, okay? So this is the beginning of this. Basically, once he picks up the bat, it sets in.
Right. This is what sets in motion.
The mob
justice, mentality movie.
Yeah, into motion. Okay. And what's kind of interesting about this storyline is that there is pushback against what the mob are doing in the film.
Right.
It is represented as something that's complicated. And ultimately misguided.
And at times ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimately misguided. But
you're actively trying to make Tommy our hero.
Right, but here's the thing. Like, I think the big... I mean, they're following the wrong guy, which is a sign that this isn't necessarily the right thing to be doing, at least within the world of the film.
Right.
But the fact that it is seen to come from a relatable place... And that again and again we're told the reason these people are doing this is due to an external force, which is Michael Myers. That is dangerous.
Yeah, right.
That is a dangerous and irresponsible reason for vigilantism. Because the only reason that applies to both this and what happened in January 6th, the reason this happens is the willingness and readiness of the people involved to take falsehood
to go fact. Along. Yeah, right.
That's it. That's where you should draw the line. The fact that, the fact that this movie portrays the idea that they've got a point. This comes from a good place, and two, it's
I don't know if that's it.
Michael orchestrates it. Well, they give both reasons at different times because
to me, I think this movie is trying at times to say how misguided the entire town becomes.
Yeah.
But you can't do that while simultaneously trying to make these 5 characters, the characters that we follow, and like we're supposed to care if they live or die, because ostensibly they're our heroes for this movie.
I mean, that's and
you can't do both at the same time. They can't live in existence with each other.
And added to that, so my reason, your reason, and there's not, given that there is pushback, there's not nearly enough pushback.
No, yeah, no.
When they cross the line, there's not enough pushback. I mean, there's a scene later on.
There's a scene where the sheriff is just sitting on the stairs, like, boy.
I think
I'm really grieving how out of hand that got.
Speaking of the sheriff, I think we skipped over the reintroduction of Brackett, and the only reason Lee Brackett,
yeah.
And I only wanted to mention it because it's another one of my sitcom moments where I have a specific pull. The way he hears the name Michael Myers, it's exactly how in a scene of in an episode of Seinfeld, in a nail salon, Frank Costanza's ex-girlfriend reconnects with him. She says, I remember a guy. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, right.
Like, so much it could be a reference. It's the most sitcom-y way you could possibly do that reveal. And obvious, I mean, not to say of like how disrespectful it is to that actor who, you know, they've clearly pulled out of a retirement home to do this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, fuck. This is what he has to do. This is the level he has to work at.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And I think it's interesting, like, over the course of the film, because we said when we did Halloween 2, it's like one of the great and bad things about Halloween 2 is Brackett's there, but there's not enough of him.
Yeah.
Like, the where they're going with Brackett is so interesting, but they can't, like,
right.
It's like you see why they took him out of the movie, but you really wish we could have kept with him because it's getting really interesting.
So what's worse?
And all of that is 20 times better than...
I was going to say, yeah.
Than any of this. And we acknowledge that was an underuse.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you would call this.
All right, let's take a break. I need a breather. Because we're going to start getting into the shit I really hate.
Oh, you... I'm really impressed that you can make distinctions. I just don't have those kind of distinctions.
Oh, man. All right, everyone. We'll be right back.
Well, we'll talk about it, but I guess this film does fall away from its own terribleness at some point. Like, it actually becomes... It actually doesn't live up to its own terribleness.
Well, we'll find out why when we get back. Right out.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We've had a good burp, and we're ready to finish up with Halloween Kills.
One of us did. Literally the second we started recording. After having quite a bit of time in between.
Right. I think right about now, at least in my notes, I have now we're back at Michael's remodeled house.
Big John and Little John.
Big John and Little John.
More eccentric sitcom-like characters that populate this neighborhood with no boring people.
Right, exactly.
Like every other fucking town in America.
And
like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone's a fucking cartoon character. And this is,
everyone's a wide-eyed puppet.
I wish.
Yeah.
I would have saved this film. When you invent a gay couple with ironic retro tastes as characters, I think you're showing that there's a fine line between making a movie set with a retro-obsessed culture and a movie that's just retro-obsessed.
Okay, fine.
Because later on in the movie, it's made very clear that all this is to get Michael back into the kind of house that it would have been in the 60s when he murdered Judith. Again, it's a total reverse engineer. Both these characters and what they've done to the house is all to get us to back to 1960s era Myers house.
You think? I guess,
absolutely.
yeah. I mean,
there's no other reason why they're in the movie. This is not an episode of Modern Family.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it is. It's an episode of Modern Family gone awry. But these characters...
I don't know. My thoughts were more like, if you watched episodes of Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, or maybe...
Not helping.
I know.
Again, shouldn't be in the movie.
Or those modeled rehome kind of shows. Because
that's their alibi.
The interior of their house is extremely green, I will say. And I imagine one of those shows where they redo your house and the couple comes back in and goes, "Oh."
And we know that they're realtors, right? Because we see them on the bench.
Yeah, right.
We see their poster on the bench behind some of the characters.
We have a callback to Halloween 2 because we have
razor blade.
We have razor blades.
And again, this is one of those moments in the movie where they think they're being smarter because they're playing the razor blade as a prank.
Yeah.
But again, I would argue it's more interesting before when it was just a bit of folklore that they crowbarred into the film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's more interesting when they do it. That's a really fine line with camp, I think. And I think this movie aims at camp, but misses the mark.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're right.
And, I think it was on an episode of With Gawley and Russ, there was a definition given of camp, which was really interesting in relation to Bride of Chucky, which is to parody and do at the same time. And that's where camp lies.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
In
that's
a sense,
good. Yeah, I like that.
And the mistake that's made here is we're not doing.
Right.
We're making it an ironic statement about how this was just, this razor blade in the apple thing was just folklore. Like modern day folklore. Halloween 2 is referencing it as if it really happened, whereas this is saying that, it's just a ruse.
It's never really happened. It's just a story you've heard, and we're going to play on that.
But then that's less interesting in a horror movie.
Right, of course.
You kind of want those folklorish elements. Isn't it all based on folk? Anyway,
yeah.
It's a minor thing. It's a minor quibble. In a haystack full of quibbles. Once again, we retell the Myers house story as a ghost story again. Is there anyone who doesn't know the story by now?
They should.
Even someone who's only seen this movie?
Even if it's 40 years later, everyone in this town, I have to imagine, knows the story.
Yeah. Well, given that,
but at the very least,
it's been told already in this film.
Yes.
By Karen, right? Or is it?
Well,
anyway.
Tommy tells the story.
Yes.
Karen tells the story. Big John and Little John tell the story. There's no ending to who to how many people tell this story. Hawkins tells the story. The sheriff tells the story. God.
And every single one of those versions.
That bartender you liked was telling the story.
Don't hold that against me. I thought he was genuine before he was revealed to be part of a massive bit of reverse engineering.
Here's the part of this movie that I hate the most.
Wow.
The teenagers decide to become vigilante with their parents or their friends' friends. No, their friends' parents. and not a single adult says no. Well, I guess that's unfair. Karen says no, but Karen gets duped.
For a little while,
yeah.
But then she eventually
And then
relents,
she just
right?
joins.
And that's a problem for two separate reasons. The first being that, you know, at the end of the last film, which is minutes ago in the timeline of this, she was all over being a vigilante.
Yeah, right.
Now she suddenly had a crisis of conscience, which doesn't make character sense. It's a straight line if you take out the ending of the last movie, but that exists,
right?
So we can't. And then, you know, she's the only one who semi stands up to any of the mob.
Yeah.
But also she's talked around.
But also cheating. Well, we're not there yet. Hang on. First, I want to talk about, because I think Tommy gets to the hospital. He has this line.
Oh, God.
The only way we stop this is if we all come together on this. I need some good people. People not afraid to get their hands dirty. Everyone else needs to go home. I need some good people. People willing to get their hands dirty. Those are two separate groups of people.
Yeah.
Okay?
Is it in the same part of...
And that's how I know that this movie thinks they're telling a story about heroes, but doesn't understand they're telling a story about fucking monsters. Michael Myers is the least monstrous person in this film.
And the movie doesn't even know it. There's an interesting movie there if you know it, but it's not. That's Curse of Michael Myers.
Right, yes.
That's a success compared to this movie.
Oh my God, I hadn't even considered that. But I think
that
you're
makes
right.
that point relatively effectively.
Oh, that's great.
So I want to also, when you put a mob in a montage, you're basically sort of endorsing what they're doing, right? I mean, if you put anything in a montage, you're saying it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But this is where we get to Lindsay's moment in the spotlight, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Because she's literally out of focus in the bar scene. She doesn't have one close-up.
Yeah, you're right.
She's a blur. She's blurrier than the picture of Michael on TV in that scene. And, you know, it's very clear that the filmmakers have zero faith in her as an actor.
Yeah, right.
And they're like, let's just let Anthony Michael Hall do all the heavy lifting in this scene. Let's keep her as a background blur. We want the name and the face because she's legacy actor, character, and she's on a popular reality show.
Yeah.
So we need her, but we don't want to use her more than we have to. This may be the only choice in the movie that the filmmakers have vindicated on. Because when she gets her moment,
yes,
it feels like exactly what it is. The best they could do shooting around her schedule for Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Yeah, right.
And I know this for a fact because I was watching... This was back when I watched The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And I remember the episodes where she went out of town and then came back for the weekend to fabricate a fight with Lisa Vanderpump. And then went back to filming Halloween Kills. So I've seen the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead version of it. Yeah. And it all fits. It fits together like a jigsaw piece. But, I mean, her acting's terrible. You know, she hasn't... The truth is... She hasn't kept up any significant acting.
No, yeah, right.
She was a kid, so she's probably not gonna be good, and she's not.
And she's not.
And she's not. It's as reality show level as you might expect it to be. It's not like she's Lisa Renner or Heather Dubrow. She's not even Heather Dubrow.
Also, I have questions.
I'm revealing way too much about my tastes.
You have opened a window into your viewing habits that I didn't even know. I am dumbfounded.
I thought you would be. I was hoping you would be. This is actually one of the scenes where I thought, like, when Michael is pursuing Lindsay through the wooded part of the playground.
Yes, right.
I've just thought about
They're
it.
in a park.
Sense. Yeah. I was like, okay, it's basic suspense, but it's okay.
And then I guess it would be okay if there wasn't any place but one place where she would be hiding.
Well, okay, that's what I mean by basic. Like, it's no, it's nothing to write home about, but
I have this problem.
This is what you might have, suspense. That's what Halloween is. So I'm reaching here. But then they cut away to Laurie in the hospital room, and I'm like, well, the first rule of suspense, don't cut away from the fucking thing.
Then they come back to it. So they leave it. Then Michael, so she's hiding underneath the roots of a tree by the stream.
Yes.
Michael...
Fuck you couldn't draw a map of Haddonfield if you tried.
I know, right? Nothing is near nothing. But Michael stands at the edge and is sort of looking around, trying to find Lindsay, and decides, she must have gone over the bridge. She is sitting there, trying her best to look as terrified as possible. And Michael, we hear the
knowing she has to go back to Beverly Hills in like 20 minutes.
20 minutes. But we hear the deep, resonating footsteps of Michael walking across the bridge and out of her life. Now, by the way, Michael is killed. The nurse killed the doctor, killed Marion.
That's hugely offensive because she, like, the best they can come up with for Marion is and Nancy Stevens particularly, is an old lady wig joke,
right?
And her not even being able to muster the defense that she did in H2O,
right? And
she's killed off indiscriminately. This legacy character played by a legacy actor amongst these extras we couldn't care less about, like as if they're the same thing. They're not. One was in Halloween 1, 2,
by
H2O.
definition.
The others are a couple of guys we saw for 60 seconds in the last film who have yet to develop a character that we can conceive of
or care about.
Anyway, I'll care about.
And they also do her the disservice by having her look and act dumb, and again being a woman who has a gun but is too frightened to do anything other than shoot it when she doesn't need to.
And that's like explicitly saying.
But again, it's a cheat.
It's a cheat. It's also
a cheat because they just
you've
want
got
the
a model
line
here, which is the opening scene of H2O. About how you make this character work. And you're ignoring it.
It's all a cheat to get to the line. This is for Dr. Loomis. Click. Ugh. No bullets left.
That guy who looks like he's wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
But so listen, they're all dead in or near the car. Lindsay's over past the playground. Some of all the kids are dead.
The other kids are dead, yeah.
So when Tommy shows up, this is what is
these movies love to kill kids.
This is
in a way that I know it's almost pedophilic.
It is. It is almost a crime in and of itself.
I mean, I'm way more sensitive to that since I've become a dad. But I think even before I was a dad, I would have had a problem with this because
it's ridiculous.
Kids are not that disposable, even in horror movies.
Right. Not usually. But this is another huge cheat,
the boundaries
Tom.
of taste of good society.
Yes, exactly.
Dude, that we don't indiscriminately kill off kids.
We don't have good taste infecting this film at all. But Tommy shows up on the scene. By the way, that line I said before, the only way we stop this is if we all come together on this. And then everybody separates and goes their own way looking for Michael Myers. And Tommy, of course, is by himself the whole time, which is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But he shows up on the scene, and when he gets there, all the bodies are in different places. Michael has done his sassy thing of placing bodies in places, which means...
and masking them, like masking the kids
masking them with
the
kids' masks that are all
with
from
the
Halloween 3
masks, yeah.
But that means that Michael Myers crossed the bridge, left Lindsay, then came back... then placed all the bodies, and then left again.
You sound like Kevin Costner in JFK. In midair, mind you.
This is a miraculous bullet.
Yeah, it doesn't... Yeah, I mean, none of these films make geographic sense, but given that there's no redeeming features of this film, it stings a little harder.
I like that after this, Tommy goes back to the hospital and announces his murder plans in front of the cops.
Well, this is where like some of the worst lines in the movie are, and I don't say that lightly.
Yes, exactly.
I think probably one of the low points of this film is Laurie screaming, "Go find him, Tommy!"
Right.
Like shouting a kill order from a hospital bed. Again, did no one at this point think that this wasn't the best use of Jamie Lee Curtis?
Nobody thought, could we have her do something interesting?
Then she says, "We always fight."
Yeah.
You can't have a line like this after you decanalize all the instances in which this is true.
Right.
And then, for me, the sort of, well, yeah, this is the equivalent of putting in the clips from Halloween 2, but in a political sense, where, you know, there's the point of no return.
Yes, right.
For the politics of this film. They say the system failed.
Mm-hmm.
And
not only do they say the system failed, but the actual sheriff and his deputies take a back seat to this mob. Yeah. They just let it happen.
But this is the point, is where it's like, if this is an accidental reference to the kind of rhetoric that motivated January 6th, then it's one of the all-time great coincidences of history.
Yeah, right.
This is where I feel this is the smoking gun.
Yeah.
Of what this movie really feels about vigilante justice and how they, you know,
there's a part of me, Tom, there's a part of me that still
storming the Capitol.
There's a part of me that still thinks that this movie is trying to show how ugly it is, but you can't do that.
No,
and make the leaders of the vigilantes your heroes.
And you have to go out. It's irresponsible not to make part of your movie the point, which is never made explicitly in this movie.
Right.
The mob believe lies, and that's why they act.
And that's why they are acting the way they do. Right.
There is no.
See, but do you think this movie thinks that? Because there's no conversation of it, but you're seeing it actively in the hospital as they chase the wrong person. Do you think that's what they're thinking? That's enough?
No, because all everyone's saying is the opposite of that. They're saying, this is all Michael's masterpiece.
Yeah.
We were driven to this.
You know what I noticed that really made me laugh out loud in this scene? When they start chasing the other patient up the stairs, Tommy Doyle, he says, "Is that him? Is that him?" And he starts milling through the crowd. And he, in the process of saying, "Evil dies tonight," he turns around and just elbows a stranger in the face next to him.
Yeah.
So he's like breaking the nose of an innocent person next to him as he says his stated goal of killing evil tonight.
Yep.
Fuck this movie.
These, you know, I think in our ranking episode, I already referred to the fact that these scenes are actually badly filmed, just from a technical standpoint.
Terribly filmed. How does Karen, who is with the mob at the beginning, then the mob starts chasing them, then she gets her mother upstairs and chats with her for about 10 minutes, and then somehow gets in front of the mob, the entire mob, who's been chasing the guy up the stairs for 10 minutes.
And, you know, just
bad filmmaking.
As if things couldn't get worse. Now we're going back to our 1978 flashback.
I know.
To complete a story that you hard cut away from.
45, 50, I don't know how long.
It was your choice.
Hour and 10 minutes ago.
Creating more interim events.
Yeah.
That you can be the follow-up to, other than the original movie, which, let's face it, gives you enough to build on.
Right.
As we know, being one of the greatest horror movies
of all time.
And again, they're dragging the Loomis alike into it.
Yeah.
And also, again, just to sort of double down on how the mindset of this movie is so fucked up.
I mean, it's so fucked up that, Tommy actively assaults a cop, and Hawkins seems to regret being a decent man.
That is exactly what I was going to say. The film suggests the most historically catastrophic event you can create is by displaying human empathy.
Right. Fucking what?
Again, dangerous and irresponsible as a point of view. And it gets worse. Because something else you're supposed to... when you use it as a plot point, when you use suicide as a plot point, you have to handle that very carefully.
Yeah, right.
Right? And this movie makes 2 different mistakes in handling suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Making it too romantic and making it too sensational.
Yes.
This movie does both. It treats it in the slow motion, fall of angels.
Yes, right.
Which you talk to any anti-suicide charity, but this tells people that
this is actively dangerous.
Yeah, this tells people that it's going to be a beautiful thing, and
yeah.
It's not. And then it shows it as pure gore and splat.
Right.
A splatter, and you're just like, oh, so you have no respect for it in any way. You have no respect for this
right.
plot point. That once again, you introduced.
Your choice.
Nobody told you this guy had to jump off a building. You wrote it.
Yeah.
And then we're supposed to feel sorry for this mentally ill man we've been routinely mocking for the past 2 movies.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Halloween Kills. And I've got more lines here.
I would believe you when you told me, "Oh, isn't this a terrible thing?" If you hadn't created a terrible thing.
Yeah. Again, the apologies here are laid large. It's about what he's done to this town. He's turning us into monsters. No, you're monsters.
Yeah, you're just bad. You're just terrible people.
You chose to be monsters. That is what this movie doesn't understand, and maybe it didn't understand the gravity of that when it was made.
Right.
But it should now. It definitely should now.
There should be an apology issued.
Compensation for the security guard that died at January 6th.
Yeah.
For this piece of propaganda made about it.
So now
I'll tell you something. Another line they're desperate to, to paraphrase Mean Girls. Stop trying to make this happen. He creeps. He kills. He goes home. This is based on one single instance of this happening.
Right.
Okay. Once again, they're talking about movies that don't exist anymore when they say this.
Well, but they're also trying to reference what they wedged in at the beginning of this movie.
Exactly. Yeah. They had to sort of, they had to make a Halloween sequel.
Yeah. They had to retcon what was they had to retcon something that was not asking to be retconned.
It's appalling. I also like the fact, we've come so far since the last movie, and the movie is still asking us to remember that Cameron and Allison were dressed up as Bonnie and Clyde for Halloween.
Yeah.
Because, they enter the house with their guns, and you're like, oh, yeah, if you watch it back-to-back with us, but
yeah.
If you're not, if it's, years apart, you're like, who the fuck remembers that?
Yeah, right.
But I honestly didn't remember, and when I saw this and he was dressed as a woman, I was like, I didn't even put it together then.
But, so this is the part where Lonnie does his detective work, like you said. What he creeps, he kills, he goes home. So he didn't want to go to Laurie's house,
or at least he has once.
Yeah, Laurie's house is just on the way to his house. That's where he was trying to go.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes, what's his kid's name? I keep forgetting. Cameron. He takes Cameron and Allison. And again, one of the biggest cheats of the fucking movie, because every adult that's not in the hospital, maybe, every adult in this movie wants teenagers to grab weapons and come with them and try to hunt a human being.
Yeah, it's true.
And feel as though they have earned the right to do that with them. And then Lonnie...
So tone deaf, isn't it?
So tone deaf.
Yeah.
And then
to
Lonnie...
what's going on
but
with
I'm
kids
almost
and
more
firearms
offended
right
by the fact that they get to Michael Myers' house and Lonnie says, I can't believe I let you come with me. You guys stay here. And that's a cheat just to get him in the house by himself.
It is.
Fucking fuck this movie.
Also,
God
you know,
damn it.
like after, you know, I was so burned by the baseball bat, which I thought was just a nice in-world detail. It's like, when you see that pitchfork, you're like, I'm not falling for this again. That fucking pitchfork is going to be used for something.
Also, Big John and Little John. They're, like we said, they're fucking realtors.
Yes.
So, when you're home alone and then you see your
psychopathic realtors. At least one of them.
Yeah. But when you see that your back door is open after you just closed it and then you hear thumping upstairs, you don't go upstairs. Nobody does that. They get the fuck out of that house and call the cops.
Also, they didn't have to be realtors, did they? Like, they could be affluent gay men without being realtors. It's only that sign of them on the bench.
Yeah.
So.
But this movie, like you said, this movie has a fetish with killing everyone and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to go upstairs to investigate so that they can be murdered. And Lonnie has to go in the house by himself so he can be murdered, so that the kids can go in the house by themselves.
Right. Yes, absolutely. How are we doing?
Have we
how
already?
Are we doing on time? Do we want to go on, because this is the point of the movie where the last two movies are undone.
I know.
Completely. I don't know if it's too much to talk about without going to another segment. I don't know, but I got a lot to say.
Tom.
Because this becomes... I know, I don't want to do it for Halloween Kills.
More than 15 minutes?
Could be.
Come on.
It becomes another film.
Oh, yeah.
It's an entirely different film after this scene.
I know.
But that, I mean...
Come on, seriously, how in-depth on that do you really have to go?
Well, all right. So we've spent two films establishing Michael as a real-world killer, and now we're being told he's supernatural.
He's supernatural, right. I mean...
Not to mention that it's another Michael trap.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work, so I suppose it counts as an inversion, but whatever.
If you were all the adults, and one teenager is dead... and one's about to die, you know that they're there. You know that they're in danger. So you all travel and just let one adult go and try and lure Michael out of the house to be chased 4 blocks away?
Mm-hmm.
That's the plan?
But again, it's like they've written themselves into a story corner, right?
Of course.
Because there's no possible way
it's a
in which
huge
he won't
cheat.
be killed.
They just want...
But it's also a cheat that changes the whole basis of the movie.
Absolutely.
It becomes a ghost film.
Mm-hmm.
In the last few minutes of the movie. After telling us exactly the opposite for nearly 2 movies.
Also, like, this is a small thing, but Lonnie goes into the house by himself, and it is conservatively 5 seconds before we hear a gunshot.
Yeah.
And the kids are like, we're up.
Well,
let's go.
I don't know. Given the, I think that that fits the Lonnie we know.
It might, but
if we knew anything about it.
It's 10 seconds after that the kids are inside the house and Lonnie's already packed up into the attic.
Maybe part of his supernatural powers is that he can make time morph. I mean, at this point, why not?
When Cameron was really getting the shit kicked out of him, I thought it was a good little piece of acting from Allison. When
Well, I mean, we haven't really talked. I mean, we've kind of talked about how Laurie and Hawkins are and Marion and Tommy and Lindsay are wasted in this movie. We haven't specifically talked about how Allison is wasted in this movie.
Oh, she
and
is.
At one point earlier in the movie, she has to go to the story problem room in the hospital.
Yeah, right.
Where they put all the story problems with Hawkins and Laurie. And literally, and this speaks to the political problems of the movie, the only way that she gets out of that story problem room is by becoming a part of the mob.
Is becoming, yeah, exactly, a vigilante. Yeah.
And this movie is trying to tell you that it's doing things for, like, philosophical or emotional reasons, and it's always about a story fix.
Mm-hmm.
It's those cheats that you talked about.
Yeah.
Because the supernatural retcon here is just a story fix, and
sure,
they drown it with Laurie's voiceover. They drown it in kind of metaphysical musings.
Yeah, what is it like? The more he kills, the more he transcends.
Yeah, but
that kind of shit.
The more grandiose they make it, the more hollow it seems.
Mm-hmm.
This film's written itself into a story hole, and it needs the biggest retcon of all time to get out of it. Not only is it, you know, something as stupid as he's supernatural, it's old news. We've done this before with Michael Myers so many times.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't mind I don't mind
really
the supernatural. I've never minded the supernatural element of Michael Myers because I
don't mind it. I don't mind it if you're building to that, and if you want to make it the basis of your film, but don't spend two movies
exactly
convincing me he exists in the real world and then pull the carpet out like that. Literally pull the carpet out.
And also, like, the entire scene is a cheat because they're filming so much of it in close up, so that you can't as an audience member see that there's no way these 30 adults would fail in killing this man. Even if he was supernatural, they could probably still get his head off his body.
Right.
And then burn it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, they have to... I don't know. I really think that there's a part of these filmmakers that thought that they were trying to show the audience the folly of vigilantism. And if that's the case, they had so missed the mark.
That
it's
I don't even think it's that lofty.
That they could
don't even think
possibly think that.
I think it's just another form of cheating.
Yeah.
It's I know, you know, and just technically bad filmmaking. I mean, this is all done in voiceover.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the end of Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. You know, it's a totally It feels like a reshot, rewritten ending. I don't know if it was. I don't know if they were heading towards this and then they took a U-turn, or they just didn't know how else to do it.
Yeah.
But it looks tacked up. The voiceover from Jamie Lee Curtis looks tacked up. Seems tacked up.
Well, and sounds terrible. And they're trying, they're trying to give you this moment in which I don't know what they're trying to do with Tommy, with his wide-eyed.
No.
Again, a total waste of good acting, but like wide-eyed close-up side shot of his face, like he's realizing the mistakes that he just made, that everything he did just, effectively ended his own life and the lives of the people he cared about.
Well, they got to do.
It seems like they're trying to give him this emotional moment that the movie has not earned.
No. They know they don't want him in the next film, so they gotta get rid of him.
But then we're back at Michael's house, making more inexplicable choices. There's no reason for Karen to go upstairs in the house that all these people were just murdered in, to pensively look out the window so that she can be psycho-murdered.
She's also comfortable with vigilantism again.
Yeah.
Which we knew at the beginning of the film.
Thought we had changed our minds about in the middle of the film.
Yeah.
And now have gone back to at the end of the film.
Exactly.
But you know, how Michael gets back to the house without anybody seeing him. All the cops are there. We're getting her daughter into an ambulance. Like, her daughter has been attacked. What possesses her to go upstairs and pensively look out the window? Nothing. The movie just needs her to die. So it's literally the most unearned kill in the entire 2 movies we've seen up to this point. And then on top of it, they are blatantly doing the shower scene from Psycho. Like, just stop referencing. Stop taking things from other movies. Just stop.
Yeah.
Be your own fucking movie for 30 seconds even.
And, you know, the other cheat of this is it's not just about they got themselves into a story hole. They need to end the movie. They need to end the movie in a way that opens for a possibility of another film.
Yeah.
Because they have self-advertised this as a trilogy.
Right.
And so it's totally inorganic setup to a future movie.
Absolutely.
Which is going to lumber Halloween Ends, however it turns out, with a lot of hard work to do.
It's going to saddles it with a bunch of shit, that's for sure.
Yeah. So
we're going to see a lot of picture frames, I'll tell you that much.
It's going to be a lot of looking at photographs of people. I agree. If that's not there, then they're geniuses, because it's so I suppose, you know, if you want to headline it, it's doing things badly, but also doing it for the wrong reasons.
Right.
Like there's a way of ending this movie that is at least authentic to what you're doing, and we're not even doing that.
Yeah, right.
That's what I mean about. So it's true. So, it's true. What I teased earlier is true. That the movie doesn't live up to its own terribleness.
I mean, I have a note here.
Idea of what it is, which is a terrible, terrible thing.
I have a note here that there was a point in this watching of this movie where I started actively rooting for Michael Myers because I hated the townspeople so much.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, definitely.
Michael has earned the right to kill them all, as far as I was concerned. I don't know. I don't have really anything left. Do you have a credit check? What are we?
Yeah, I do.
Other than that terrible, terrible fucking song.
That is part of it. Yeah.
Hunter's Moon.
An equally inappropriate yet different song to follow the theme. So the movie's doubled down on that from Halloween 2018, except, you know, it's not written by Jamie Lee Curtis. It doesn't even have that going for it.
Right.
Now, I teased this in the last episode. Construction coordinator Tom Jones Jr.
Yes.
Whose name I picked out because it's Tom Jones Jr. is the body of Loomis. How strange!
Oh man!
That it should be a man whose name I lighted on completely by accident. And then I come to do this movie, and I'm like, "This is our Dr. Loomis. That's the guy inside the mask."
That's fantastic.
So, they were trying to.
On behalf of the filmmakers, we'd like to apologize to you.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have been made to do this.
I guess they were trying to fabricate a Bob from Twin Peaks.
Right.
Kind of, where they took the sound guy and turned him into the villain for the film.
Yeah.
They're trying to do something like that. But it's a bit different when you slap a mask of a dead man on somebody. As if I have to say that out loud, but it doesn't get any better. There's a famous cameo in this movie. Do you know who it is? Not related to the Halloween franchise, but very well known in the world of comedy.
No, I don't think I do.
Bob Odenkirk is in this film.
Oh, I did know this.
Yeah.
Shoot, who?
In news footage,
he's the face of a kid.
Yes,
right?
He's the face of the kid.
Yeah.
They put like a high school photo of Bob Odenkirk.
That's right.
As a character called Bob. So that's
you're right. Yeah.
That's an elaborate cameo, but one which I feel was worth their time, unlike anything else in this film. And finally, just the name, Donald, open parentheses, Trey, close parentheses, Crumpler the Third, as the gang boss. Donald Trey Crumpler the Third. And I have so many questions about this name, about his nickname, and his antecedents. I'd love to sit down with Donald Trey Crumpler III and ask him about his background.
Crumpler?
Crumpler.
That's amazing.
The third.
The third Crumpler.
His mother was a crumpler. His father was a crumpler.
His grandfather was a crumpler. Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And that is
now
we've killed Halloween Kills.
I seem to remember that you said there were 2 things you half liked, but I only remember hearing one.
I might have talked myself out of it.
Okay.
No, the Lindsay pursuit sequence. And the take it looking at the wedding ring and closing the blinds.
Oh, okay, the wedding. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, both of those things are gratuitously stepped on.
Yeah, right.
And undone, but
okay, all right.
That's it. I wasn't including the Bob Odenkirk cameo as one of those things, but I probably should because that is thoroughly successful.
Right.
As a gag and a cameo.
Yeah.
Maybe the only piece of comedy in the film that works.
Right.
Shit. Could that be true?
Good God.
Wow.
Well, I'd like to know what the listeners think, Tom.
I want to know where that 39% comes from.
I want to hear from...
I want to know where that 38 of that 39% comes from.
I give anything to talk to Danny McBride and David Gordon Green about this movie on the podcast.
You know what's going to happen, right? Like, if you had to talk to them about it, they'd lock you in a room, make you sign an NDA, and then say, yeah, it was a disaster. Like, okay, you can't tell anyone about this, but it was a complete failure. You know it, right? I mean...
We were held at gunpoint.
Although they are still out there defending it.
We were held at gunpoint and told to do this.
They still give interviews where they're out there defending it, and saying...
Oh, really? I haven't seen that.
They're trying to rebrand it as divisive, like it's The Last Jedi. You know what I mean? Like, it ain't,
No,
it's... That movie has redeeming qualities, this one doesn't.
Yeah.
Whatever you think of it, someone will like something about The Last Jedi, this one, no. There's nothing to like. There's nothing to enjoy.
I don't think so either. All right, but I want to know what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please tell us. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Send us an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. You know who he is. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here. I'm from the How Dare You Awards. What can I say? When you hear us next, we'll have watched Halloween Ends.
We'll be different people.
Yeah, we will. We don't know right now.
We literally cannot tell you anything about Halloween Ends.
We know nothing.
Except that it looks like the mask has gone back to normal.
We know nothing now, and I suspect we'll know too much.
Time lapse.
Too much
mask,
we'll know.
That's all we know.
Yeah.
Too much knowledge. Too much. You were just trying to get me to say that.
I was. I just wanted to hear
too much. Too much fucking perspective. We will literally be suffering from too much fucking perspective.
It worked. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Look forward to that.